Nat.
And I'm Guy. And this is your home for everything Alberta independence, broadcasting twice daily, once at 12 noon and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. On Saturday, we broadcast at 5 p.m. and we have interviews dispersed throughout the week.
But before we start, thank you so much for joining us today. Hope you're having a great day. If you haven't yet, please do subscribe because it really does help us out. We try to read all your comments. However, if we can't get to them, we'll read as many as we can. If you feel so inclined and you really want your comment read, you can always super chat us, and we're very grateful for that. Also, we have memberships.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's get right into the breaking news. Or actually, we have a few comments. Let's do that first.
Pete says, hello, Pete. It says, the Clarity Act is perfectly clear. Ironically, a clear majority is whatever the yes side gets, plus one. What a farce.
Yeah, and I've been all over that all day with the X account and everything on our X account are actually the stories we're going to talk about within the show. So that's going to come up throughout the show, number one. But number two, Jeff Rath posted a very interesting analysis of how we could possibly improve what's going to happen on October 19th. We'll kind of get into that. I didn't consider a lot of the things he's actually bringing up in the legal context.
And Lyle Norman, hello, says, I think Preston Manning is skeptical of Danielle Smith. And Pete says, Smith is the least of our worries, Lyle. And especially maybe given the context of what Rath is saying. Lyle Norman says, Alberta independence is getting more momentum again. Jeff Rath dug up more info with his sources. And
yeah, and that's exactly what we're going to get into. And I know a lot of people have been giving Jeff Rath a hard time lately, but man, that was an amazing post. And sometimes he really comes out with a diamond in the rough there.
And Sue Snowbird, hello, says, I know you will read my comment. Here I am. The independence movement needs an email box for citizens to send our constructive comments to the independence movement so ideas that could be used are followed up on.
Oh, yeah, that would be a great idea, actually.
And I'm guessing that would be more of directed to either Keith Wilson or Jeff Rath or maybe even The Fringe. I know The Fringe said he was getting together a bunch of content creators tonight, so maybe suggesting that during his show as well. So all the content creators there also get the idea and the information because it is a very good idea.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit hard though because it's a decentralized movement. There's not one main source to put everything through. Right now there's different organizations and people are affiliating with different organizations. It would be nice if each organization had a mailbox, so then the people that are already working with inside that organizations or have suggestions for that specific organization, it can get right to the top really quick. True. Because if we head it to one individual that then has to disseminate it to each organization, that could take a lot longer. So,
and I know, for example, Chris Scott, Kathy Flatt, etc., are also pretty receptive when they go and speak in person with people. So maybe having that suggestion for them as well to maybe have an version of that as well.
Absolutely, yeah. But we do need a way for the grassroots movement and the people to kind of get messages up to the people that are running the different organizations, I guess.
Yeah, and also, I said yesterday that tonight we were going to be releasing the Kathy Flatt interview, but then I remembered that The Fringe will be having his show, and we don't want to really conflict with that. We want to give Kathy also the time of day that interview does deserve. So we're going to be releasing it tomorrow, and I'll let you know at what time.
Well, and The Fringe's show is a big show tonight, and that's one of the big reasons we didn't want to conflict with it. We want everybody to kind of watch that, especially if he's going to have that panelist of content creators on there tonight.
Exactly. Thomas Muse, hello, says, I hope I'm saying your last name correctly, says, good afternoon, Freedom Peoples. It's so beautiful to see these corrupt politicians or politics starting to panic. All eyes on Alberta.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did show a couple of clips last night, and they really do seem to be in panic, especially when you have somebody like Jen from The Line. Even though I disagree with her, she knows the basic analysis on the ground, and she's on liberal panels. So then she gives somewhat pretty good analysis, and then the liberal panel kind of goes into panic because they're like, oh no, I didn't think about it like that. The independence movement has a huge advantage with the new question that was posed and the fact that it is a non-binding referendum.
And James Hunt says Communist Carney had said in the House of Commons he will not accept a 50+1 vote, shows how corrupt the Liberals are. And luckily, before the Parti Québécois had, or the people in Quebec had risen up and to say, hey, it's actually supposed to be 50+1 that is democracy. And now that conversation is also starting to, I think it's a good thing that he said that, because the conversation is gaining steam and saying, hey, that's not how democracy or politics
he
work.
actually said that because the Quebec politicians brought it up in the House of Commons, so he was directly asked and he had to respond to it. So we're going to have that clip along with a few other clips where he keeps bringing this up, whether it's in the House of Commons or outside. This is going to be his line of attack going forward. He also has made it clear that he's not going to be able to shut down a non-binding referendum. He's going to allow that to go forward, but I think this line of attack with the Clarity Act is meant to dehinge the second referendum or put it on a much longer timeline.
And Sue Snowbird says, I had tried to send ideas to several podcasters. I don't think they have time to read my email. You can send it to us. Again, yeah. I don't know if the bigger wigs have time to read our email either, but I try to move that along as well.
Yeah, we have an email. Where is our email? It's in the description.
So it's always in our description, and it's Nat and the Guy, as it's written, as you see it, at gmail.com.
Yeah, we try to respond to most of it. We're not overwhelmed with it, but because we do 2 shows a day, sometimes it is hard to respond. Right now, we
take a while to respond.
Right now, we're on a little bit of a lighter schedule because we have pre-recorded interviews, and yeah, so...
And Teresa Freedom, hello, thank you for being here, says Big Province Alberta Cruise coming this Sunday, May 31st.
Oh, fantastic.
Interesting. Okay, now let's get into, is it breaking news or Alberta
Stay Free? Before we go into breaking news, we can talk about what's going on in Britain a little bit. Reform UK has really come up and risen up. They're kind of like the Danielle Smith, I would say, of Great Britain. And what you're seeing is Restore Britain come kind of out of nowhere and really starting to challenge and having on the ground game of faith, family, and freedom. That's their motto as well. It's very interesting how Reform UK is very mainstream, like Danielle Smith, trying to play politics inside of the sandbox, willing to put the costume on when they go to different minority communities and stuff like that, willing to bend their first principles overall. And then you see Restore Britain kind of using the same strategy Alberta Independence is, and they're having a great success right now. So I'm definitely going to keep an eye on that because it has a lot of relevancy and similarities to Alberta politics, I believe.
I was trying to remember the name of the Restore Britain main guy.
Rupert Lowe.
Rupert Lowe, there we go.
Yeah, Rupert Lowe is absolutely fantastic. It's very interesting, the similarities between Restore Britain and Alberta Independence. Although Alberta Independence doesn't have a central leader, it's a lot of the same strategies being applied. And a lot of the same strategies that Reform UK is using, Danielle Smith used, and that's why she became so popular and rode that populist wave. But there's a lot of backlash right now for Danielle Smith as well as Reform UK. And a lot of people are starting to look at Restore Britain as the hope and the future.
And I will just say hello to KP for you that says, hola, spell check isn't set up for Spanish. Hola is with an H. If you wanted the spell check, I can work with that. I can function as a spell check, which I do for you every day of your life.
Obviously.
But now let's go into, what was it, breaking news? Or
yeah, breaking news.
Let's go into breaking news.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Extra, extra, read all about it.
That was your fault. Starting with, hold on. From Table Salt says, quote, shockwaves continue in Canada after Mark Carney effectively barred provinces from leaving Canada. Quebec separatist leader Plamondon says Mark Carney is out of line. Provinces are free to consult their population at any time.
Well, I'm glad to see he put out a statement, and I'm glad to see they address this in the House of Commons as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we heard your reaction since Danielle Smith announced that she'll start the process for a future potential referendum. How do you react about this? What's happening in Alberta?
I'm surprised at what Carney said. Mark Carney seemed to be willing to give many things to Alberta in exchange for some peace. And I think the Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith, is just doing her job as a Premier, saying that, of course, they are free to consult their population, and of course, they're a parliament free of making any laws that they deem fit, for their objectives. So for Mark Carney to all of a sudden start saying that it's a bluff, it's dangerous, I think it's really out of line, and I'm not sure where that is heading. But let me make clear that in the case of Quebec, our laws are clear. The history of the 2 referendums are very clear. We are free to consult our population at any time, and there's no blackmail or any comment that will change that principle. And I'm pretty sure that it's the same reasoning in Alberta right now.
Yeah, and a good statement, but I will say they think that they're going to be able to throw a goodie bag of tricks at Alberta and
I
get
don't
this
think we heard
independence
that.
movement to kind of simmer down. It's completely the opposite here. And a lot of people within the independence movement don't like the MOU she signed because it is retroactive on a lot of previous oil pipelines that we have. We're paying taxes and shovels aren't even in the ground on the next pipeline. And as far as the next pipeline goes, it is just more payments, more carbon taxes year after year. It progressively gets more and more and more. Ultimately, that's going to hinder the natural resource sector in Alberta. One of the big reasons we need independence is so we no longer have to have these rules and regulations put on us by the federal government.
And also similar to Quebec, and it is a point we've been bringing up over and over again, that it's not just the economic stuff. It's not just on the economic side that Albertans, or the reasoning why Alberta wants to separate from Canada. It's also all the cultural issues, all the faith, family, freedom that has been stripped away and continued with continuous attempts of being stripped away by the Liberals and by the Progressives and the East, essentially, which, ironically enough, Quebec also has a very big part of the culture issue as well for them wanting to become independent too.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's going to be some more statements we're going to show in just a little bit where they did bring this up in the House of Commons. And Mark Carney is actually switching his position because the last time they brought up it in the House of Commons, the Liberals bent over backward and admitted it was 50+1. Now that's not the case anymore. We don't even know what the percentage is we need to win a majority, according to Mark Carney. According to Democracy on a worldwide level, it's 50+1.
And also from our RMC 86, this quote, "It's all falling apart for Mark Carney. He's pissed off the left wing of the Liberal Party. Stephen Guilbeault is leaving. Ebi is carping at him, and Alberta is furious with the pipeline MOU, as is the Prosperity Project. He's now lost support from the Bloc Québécois by insisting that a simple majority on any separation referendum would be subject to the Clarity Act. He's gutted the Bloc's mandate. He was hammered in the HOC today."
Yeah, I don't think necessarily his or her analysis is right on at all. Stephen Guilbeault actually looks like he's going to be moving around and playing a very big role for Mark Carney behind the scenes. I've been looking into that a lot. They're playing tension on the surface to what the people can see, but if you see the cooperation that's going on behind the scenes, even with interviews that are coming out of Stephen Guilbeault being one of the big catalysts to kind of unify the Liberals behind the scenes, as well as the Bloc. It seems like Mark Carney is getting people to step down within the Liberals, and he wants to put them within the Bloc party. So it's going to be interesting.
Mr. Speaker, respecting democracy means avoiding interfering in referendum questions, but mostly it means avoiding interfering in the citizens' response. A clear majority is 50% of the votes plus one. The Prime Minister knows this. All his laws are passed with 50% plus one. His majority depends on 50% plus one. Even his Parliamentary Secretary for Justice said the rule is 50% plus one. That is democracy, except for referenda because of the Clarity Act. Will the Prime Minister repeal this authoritarian overreach? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, you have to respect democracy. You have to respect parliamentary legislation and the decisions of the Supreme Court of Canada. Under the Clarity Act, the House of Commons must consider the following factors to establish this determination of a clear vote: the scope of the majority that are valid, expressed in favour of the successionistic option, and the percentage of eligible electors who took part in the referendum. It is not 50% plus one. The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, there is no place in a democracy for a law that does not respect the will.
Well, if he's saying it's not 50% plus one, maybe it's 40% plus one. Maybe we should push back the other way instead of just going along with this nonsensical BS.
30% plus one, then we have it already.
Of the people expressed by 50% of the votes plus one. There's no place in a democracy for a law that overturns the people's decisions by claiming after the fact that either the question or the result of the vote was not clear enough. There is no place in a democracy for a law that flouts the rules of the ballot when the result just doesn't suit the government. This is an authoritarian overreach we must avoid. Will the Prime Minister finally repeal the anti-democratic law on referendum clarity? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Yes. Mr. Speaker, we respect the laws of Canada. The Clarity Act is clear. At the same time, we respect the will of Quebecers, that is to build a strong, resilient Quebec within a strong and resilient independent.
And maybe it is not 50% plus one. Maybe it's less because Mark Carney was able to win the election with 43%. I looked it up today. And then he builds a majority government with floor crossers. Is he saying that it's not 50% plus one because he only needed 40% to get his majority?
Yeah, do we get to interpret it the other way, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous what they're trying to play here. And my hat has to go off to the Quebecers in this one because nobody else is saying anything. Danielle Smith has brought it up here or there, but she hasn't really committed to this over and over and really throwing it in the federal government's face. And with a lot of the rumors coming out from behind the scenes that there was somebody in a meeting with Danielle Smith saying that she wouldn't have a binding referendum, and now that's leaking out. Quebec's the only one really standing up to secure the rights of the citizens here with this 50% plus one.
True. And lastly, from Eyes of Alberta, just to exemplify it all, it's from, what movie is that?
Let's play the clip if we can.
Something Best Man.
What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. Baby, don't hurt me. What's he doing here? What are you doing here? Making stuff in a music hall. Come on. You know where I pay for this wedding? I can't. Keep going. Let's go. You want to pay? You idiot. You're running the wheel. Then I can tell you.
Emily, sorry, I'm not ready yet. No, it's cool, though. Sorry, Dad.
Absolutely.
Quebec was missing in that one. But
Yeah, absolutely fantastic, though. I seen that and I just had to throw it in the show today. It's been a while since I've seen a good meme against for Alberta independence there.
against the insane people. But now let's go back to your comments and then into Alberta Stay Free. That Norman says, yes, I'm good with 40 plus 1. I'm good with 30 plus 1 if we're picking. I'm good with 1 plus 1 if we're picking.
Well, and most people would say, well, you're crazy to think 40 plus 1's enough, but 43 was enough for Mark Carney. So that's right around the line of what he needed for his majority. If you need a majority in Canada of 43%, maybe we should hold Alberta independence or any independence rally to the same standard as Mark Carney.
And Michael Drader says, leave it up to the Canadian government officials to make something like the Clarity Act so very unclear.
Exactly. And that's the point of this thing.
They love to make everything clear as mud. And they tried their best to be able to do so, to bend everything to their will.
And I don't think it's unclear. I think it's clear to everybody. Now, I'm joking around about the 40 plus 1, but it is kind of hypocritical for Mark Carney to build his majority on a 43 percentage. But democratically worldwide, the percentage needed has always been 50 plus 1 in every single election globally.
And now, Lorman, thank you. It's Night at the Roxbury, the movie.
Oh, yeah, Night at the Roxbury.
And Pete says, we had to put together a freedom convoy to go to wake Ottawa up. And here we are again. Why can't they wake themselves up? Because they're willingly not wanting to. Because if they woke up to reality and what they're actually doing, then they'd lose all their power and all their support. So they can't do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
it's willful stupidity. William Robel says, howdy, Nat and the guy, just moving over from Sheila Gunn Reid and Lise Marie from Rebel News. Thank you so
fantastic.
much. And they're great too.
Yeah. And that's why we kind of scheduled our show when we did at noon. So it's right after Sheila Gunn Reid, and our night show is right before the Fringe. True. So we don't counter program other shows.
Exactly. And then over in our UMBLE, KP for you says, LMAO, us guys just focused on looking deadly, not spelling, but thanks, Nat. Do you look deadly?
No, not anymore.
Now let's go into, speaking of that, let's go into Alberta Stay Free.
Yeah.
Sweet home Alberta, where the roots run deep and the money trees grow.
And starting with from CBC Watcher, quote, shades of Justin Trudeau from Jason Kenney as he tells, I mean, not in size, as he tells tales of, quote, a bit of backstory of a stronger, let's call it right wing kind of libertarian reaction to what were even the lightest reactions in Canada under my government.
Well, he's always living in the past here, and he has a resentment because of what happened to him. And he constantly is bringing that up, and he's constantly leaning into the heritage of Canada, the good times that once were, but are no longer.
And again, we know that even more clearly now because both from John Bolton, but other people that were there during the debate this past Monday with Keith Wilson, it seems like that's what he continued to try to lean on, just a history that doesn't exist and a heritage that they purposefully continue to destroy.
David, I think I've explained to you before that there's a bit of a backstory here, which is that during COVID, as you know, in Alberta, there was a stronger, let's call it right-wing kind of libertarian reaction to what were even the lightest restrictions in Canada under my government. And that was mixed up with a lot of anti-vax conspiracy theories and so forth, and the kind of trucker convoy and adjacent movements. And a lot of people got activated into politics around that time. Those people focused on taking me down as premier, but COVID's no longer there. And a lot of them have since moved that political energy into the fight for separation. So these are people who, broadly speaking...
the majority of the population isn't woken up, and they haven't seen things. They're just not awake. And COVID, during the Jibby Jab era and the truckers convoy, a lot of people did become politically active. He's right, but he's making this sound like a bad thing. We need political engagement from the citizens. And as more and more citizens start actually waking up to politics, you're going to see more and more support for Alberta independence overall.
And I will also say maybe this is giving us a little bit more of background into his own PTSD and his vendetta against Alberta independence, because he said it right there. A lot of the people that did become activated for freedom during the Jibby Jab era because of the restrictions imposed partly by him, but also by the general Canadian government, are now the ones that have woken up to, I hate using that phrase, but have realized the value of freedom and are going towards it. So he really doesn't like Alberta independence because a lot of those same people are the ones that continue to fight for freedom.
Yeah, he thought
and that fought against him.
He thought he can ride that populist wave, and it backfired on him because it wasn't his real true values. And the same thing is starting to happen to Danielle Smith. You're seeing a lot of fractures there.
Had always been kind of at the margins of Alberta politics, supporting marginal right-wing parties, alt-right kind of rural parties that would come and go over the past 40 years, maybe like one MLA every now and then. But they've now focused their political efforts on effectively trying to take over the governing party. And I think that's profoundly undemocratic.
And it's not democratic at all. Anybody can join these political parties, and it's the will of the people that will dictate what the party stances and the party's lines are. Other than the PPC, the policies of all these parties change over time, and we're no longer a fringe minority. We're quickly becoming the majority, and that's what gives us the ability to take over the UCP. And this has been a long-term strategy of Mitch Sylvester, and it has been a good strategy overall, and we need to continue to enact this until next spring. October 18th, 2027 is when all 87 MLAs are up for re-election. We want to make sure we get as many independent MLAs in there as possible.
The Premier is the leader of the United Conservative Party. She says she's a federalist, and that will be the position of her government and her caucus, though we're not exactly seeing a stampede of people running to the microphones to acknowledge that position necessarily. It is in the founding articles, or at least in the agreement in principle to found the party. How can the United Conservative Party credibly take a position of neutrality in a referendum like this?
Well, I don't think it can. A house divided against itself cannot stand. So says Scripture, as quoted by Abraham Lincoln in the 1860s. This is the governing party of Alberta. This is serious business. A party that fields candidates on a platform, which has done so twice since its creation, a very clear platform of support for strong Alberta in a united Canada. That it was on that basis that these MLAs were elected, that they have formed government, not once but twice. And to then come in behind that and use internal party mechanisms to throw all of that overboard and to say, no, we're going to decide now that we're a separatist party, or at best neutral on national unity, is I can't really think of a precedent, at least not in modern Canadian political history.
You can't think of a precedent, and he's trying to say he would love to say, well, what we're doing is illegal, but it's not. It's strategic. It's very, very smart what is happening, and I'm glad Mitch Sylvester is kind of leading that movement to take over the UCP overall, because that's where the true power lies, is in the memberships, not even in the head, not even in Danielle Smith. memberships will dictate who the leader eventually is or who the leader eventually isn't.
But we've also outlined very clearly, at least for Danielle Smith herself, the way that she could remain neutral and once again just continue. If she had put the actual independence question on the referendum, she could have just continuously said and made her stance clear of, I am advocating and I am upholding democracy and I will let the citizens of Alberta make their choice in a very democratic way. Now she's kind of leaned quite more towards the strong Alberta within a united Canada, and I'm going to go for the federalist side, and I'm going to campaign against this. And she chose to make her better. Now she has to lie in it, but
there's a backroom deal that's going on here. I think that's starting to become very apparent. Something happened, and she had the ability to call that binding question, and she chose not to. She went the other path. Something happened with Mark Carney and Danielle Smith. I'm firmly in belief of that. That being said, we do need to focus on October 19th and make sure that is the big goal.
And we also saw, apparently, Pierre Poilievre now finally being tapped on the shoulder and being now campaigning also alongside with Danielle Smith, apparently, for Alberta to remain in Canada.
Absolutely.
So there was some tapping of shoulders there in the past few weeks before the referendum was put on there officially.
We see democracy being torn down all over the world. They want to head towards communism, so they want democracy to look absolutely ridiculous, people to rebel against it, and then lead everybody like sheep into communism. They're already starting to set up the mechanisms of attack to bring communism into effect in Canada, with private property rights disappearing, along with a bunch of other things.
And joining with an actual communist country and saying that they're the best trading partners they have.
The best way to counteract this is independence movements, not just in Alberta, but globally, smaller governance where there's actual repercussions when a politician is crooked, where we actually have oversight over our politicians, where we actually see them within the community. We want power based in the local community, not on the federal level where they dictate down. And the bigger the country gets, the more corruption there is.
And actual representation. And both Keith and Jeff have continuously said Canada might just be too big of a country, especially to function nowadays and the ways that it has led itself to function now.
Absolutely.
Corruptly. But from Keith Wilson, speaking of, Keith Wilson says, quote, I welcome lead, not leave to this important debate. Albertans deserve a serious explanation of why our children and grandchildren will be better off under Ottawa's control than in a free and prosperous independent Alberta. Federalists must now show how Canada can be made fair to Alberta when Mulroney, Harper, Manning, and Kenney could not achieve it. And we should be honest, Alberta cannot lead a confederation in which Ottawa holds the power and repeatedly uses it against us. How will Ottawa be made to stop treating Alberta as its colony and ATM? Unless there is a credible federalist independence remains a serious and necessary option. Albertans deserve answers.
And we'll go into the threat in a moment, but let's leave it here for a second. What we need to talk about is they're on a much longer timeline now because of the Clarity Act, because this is a non-binding question. We're looking at 1.5 to 2 years. And I think they're planning to show us through their actions. They're going to try to pitch the federalization of natural resources as a good thing for Western Canada. It's completely the opposite. It takes the wealth and the sovereignty away from provinces. But the federal government's definitely going to pitch that as their solution. And I think they're actually going to act. We see Mark Carney slowly moving in that direction where he tries to maintain solidarity within his own political party. He's moving them further to the right so he can federalize these natural resources and put money in the coffers.
Do you want me to go into this?
Yeah, let's go into the thread. And I'm glad to see Keith Wilson keep stepping up for these debates. The big problem for Keith Wilson is finding people that will actually step up to the debate stage.
Ken Boston Cool says, this morning, a bunch of people and I launched Lead Not Leave to read our joint statement here.
And this is another organization launched against Alberta independence. So we got to pay attention. They're getting a running start here.
Mm-hmm. Starts. This initiative will host structured conversations or salons, very fancy, test new ideas with stakeholders and policy labs, and contribute actionable ways of improving Alberta's place in Confederation.
Stakeholders, we all know what that means. This is globalist jargon for they're going to take sovereignty away.
Continues, we're going to provide published analysis, policy briefs, media interviews, and implementation-ready recommendations intended to help Alberta and Canada steer a better course. Our goal is to address Alberta's legitimate frustrations in a way that is productive and proactive, strengthening both Canada and our province's place within it. Where separatists are offering attractive ideas, we'll test them out. When their claims are rooted in wishful thinking or retreat from grounded reality, we will call them out.
Yeah, this looks like a new think tank that's going to have a public-facing arm. It's very interesting because Keith Wilson has something almost to counteract this. And I think Keith Wilson is getting business leaders and other leaders together to publish papers and things like this. I think they're specifically putting this organization together to look into those papers and try to tear them down when possible.
And lastly, it says our focus is on making the case for Alberta and Canada with a credible set of policy proposals, beginning with the progress demonstrated by the MOU. So right off the bat, they're wrong. That will ensure this next generation of Albertans is leading the country, not leaving it. And we have as we have so often before.
And again, that MOU keeps coming up. They're pitching this like the federalization of natural resources is going to be a good thing. They're unifying Canada. We're better off in Canada. This is absolutely ridiculous. And this is what I've been pitching right from the beginning. This was the direction they're going. I said, Mark Carney's not an ideologue. He's not going to build these pipelines. He's going to federalize them and make sure all the benefits go to the federal government. And he's going to throw peanuts at the provinces while he takes away the majority of their sovereignty. Now, he will give, I'd say, tentpole sovereignty issues, but they're going to be cultural. All the economic sovereignty is going to go to the federal government's hands.
And again, right off the bat, starting by even mentioning that MOU just really shows where their intentions lie and that they're not being fully truthful with the people that they're trying to convince, because once again, when that MOU was finalized, well, it also retroactively taxes everything else.
Yeah.
And imposes restrictions upon everything else too.
Okay, we can continue.
Igor Riltsev says, Rebel News for Alberta Independence. And it's the little truck they have going around.
Check out this Rebel News truck, guys. Wow.
Okay.
So much more.
And you can leave it there. And absolutely fantastic to see the truck out. I like to see if we can get enough investment to build a couple more of these trucks, because it has actually been really crucial up to this point. Mm-hmm. And it can get it can shine a lot of light on adjacent issues, like when there was a missing child. That's what they use the truck for, but it's known for Alberta independence, and then they can help the community in other ways. So it kind of unites people behind this idea of Alberta independence, where we go into the community and help out the community when it's in need.
I also do love when they used it to go to pride parades and tell the truth at pride parades that not a lot of people were very happy to have to look at or watch. And lastly, as we were mentioning, Jeff Rath released a statement, I guess I could call it, or a thread.
And it's going to be a long statement here, but I know Jeff Rath has been getting a lot of heat over the last few weeks, but I read through the statement and I thought it was absolutely phenomenal. And I was surprised. It made me think of a bunch of things I hadn't thought about, especially when we get more near the end of the statement. You don't have to read it too fast. I want people to kind of absorb it.
So from Jeffrey Rath, this quote, news alert. I've been rereading the decision of Justice Leonard blocking the Alberta independence referendum in contemplation of our scheduled Alberta Court of Appeals stay hearing on June 18th, 2026. Besides, again, remarking on the numerous errors in the decision, I was taken with the extent to which the court has seen fit to interfere with the legislative process of consultation with both Indigenous and non-Indigenous citizens alike. At paragraph 232 of her decision, Justice Leonard makes the finding that the executive, quote-unquote, is not engaged in any decision-making, which would include specific First Nations consultation until the chief electoral officer had concluded, quote, verifying that the signature thresholds are met. In other words, all Danielle Smith has to do is call a meeting with Alberta chiefs to, quote-unquote, consult with them, and then call a referendum question that complies with the Clarity Act under Section 1 of the referendum.
And we're going to get into this in the end of his statement, but he kind of brushed on it right there, and it's the next part that he says near the end that really, really got me thinking.
My big two takeaways are this. Number one, Justice Leonard unlawfully interfered in the legislative process, preventing the government of Alberta from consulting First Nations after the signature thresholds were verified by judicially interfering in the legislatively mandated signature verification process. Number two, that Danielle Smith lied to the citizens of Alberta when she looked them in the eye and said that the quote-unquote courts prevented her from calling a referendum question on independence. All Danielle has to do is call a meeting of the Alberta chiefs to consult them and listen to them assert a veto over democracy in Alberta, and then go call a referendum question under Section 1 of the Referendum Act. That is, presuming that the law around consultation can be stretched so far as to require a government to consult with with First Nations about consulting citizens in a referendum that the Supreme Court says doesn't affect anyone's legal rights. The fascinating thing about this is that on Justice Leonard's own reasoning, the point where the executive would need to consult with First Nations has not yet arisen because Justice Leonard blocked the CEO from verifying the signatures so that the executive could then do its job and consult First Nations. Intentionally or otherwise, the court appears to have catastrophically failed in its role as a neutral arbiter of the law.
Yeah, I'm thinking they made a mistake by blocking this before the signatures were counted. If they would have blocked it after the signatures were counted, there would be no opportunity to consult. Because they haven't even counted the signatures, there's no process that has really begun. What happens if we consult now? Now, I know that's a hard thing to do, but what happens if we could actually get a consultation? Now, I know a few women came out and 48 tribal members were invited out by Mitch Sylvester, and absolutely none of them showed up except for those 2 Indigenous women. But what do we need to get a consultation? And if we do get a consultation, will that trigger the counting of those signatures and the going forward with the citizen-led referendum? Also, Danielle Smith is saying she couldn't call a binding referendum. That just doesn't seem true when I'm reading through the legislation, with Rath reading through it, when I'm talking to other lawyers and people that have good legal knowledge. It seems like she completely could call the referendum. And what a lot of people are saying is she's going to call it after October 19th. Well, if she can call it after October 19th, why couldn't she call it on October 19th? I think she gave a flimsy excuse and people gobbled it up. Now, I understand we're all mad about it, and we still need to go forward and focus on October 19th and get this non-binding question over the 60% mark, just so we can send a message not only to Ottawa, but to the entire nation. But we really need to start thinking about this, and legal minds within Alberta independence need to start thinking about this, because what's going to stop Danielle Smith after October 19th from giving the exact same excuse she gave on October 19th, that she can't call a binding referendum question?
And again, when we were watching that press conference that she gave after she had announced the referendum on a referendum, one of the biggest questions that we had both during the live stream as we were watching it, but then after, and a few days after as well, when we posted about it on X2, we put in a little clip, was, well, why is she saying that she's going to be prevented by the courts, even though it doesn't seem like the mechanism for her to call her own referendum would be blocked, even though she says it would, and that the consultation part that Jeff Rath is outlining here also did not make much sense when she was trying to explain it as the reasoning for her not calling the actual referendum on independence and instead doing the referendum on a referendum.
And yeah, I can understand it. People may think it's too late now to call a consultation with First Nations and try to get the signatures counted. Okay, but after October 19th, we're still going to need that consultation to have taken place so she can actually call a binding referendum. So she might as well call it now. And once she does have that consultation, we can use it for the signatures that are currently blocked, as well as the binding referendum question she's going to call after October 19th, assuming she wants to save her own seat. Oh, Stephen Jensen.
Yes, I know. But first, let's go to Stephen Jensen. Thank you so much for the $2 super chat, saying those sign trucks are $10,000 a week to rent.
The sign trucks, yeah, we need to build one. That would be the
Isn't
thing.
that they own that one, don't they?
I believe they own that one, but I'm not 100% sure. But my thing would be, we just need a van and we need to build the sign trucks themselves, and then we can rent them out when we're not actually using them to bring income into the movement for other things as well, or to pay for the truck's insurance and things like that.
Because how much are LED panels on like Amazon?
LED panels are a lot cheaper. No, you don't buy them on Amazon.
Oh, well, wherever you buy them.
You have to buy the industrial scale ones because they're in the weather full time. So you need specialized ones, but they've come way, way down in price. So we could potentially build one of those trucks, and we don't necessarily need it on all three sides. The back door could just be a regular sticker sign, and the sides would be the actual video screens. It would be a little bit cheaper to do it like that. The back door is the one that costs a lot because that's the one that can swing open and closed.
Or maybe just stick a TV on someone's car.
No, you don't stick a TV on them. It's very interesting when you look into these LED panels, because each LED panel is a little square that just sticks into it. They're extremely mobile and cheap to use now.
But now we'll go to the rest of your comments and then into Alberta politics.
Yeah.
Pete says, interesting take on the block, Thomas. And I'll read Thomas's in a bit.
Well, and one more second with Steve Jensen's thing where it says it's $10,000 a week to rent. That would be a lot of money coming into Alberta Independence if we want to take off weeks on the truck and actually rent it out for certain things. So it'll be a good way to not only use the truck for Alberta Independence, but bring an income into Alberta Independence to actually finance the movement itself.
True. And Lyle Norman says, oh, hold on.
Oh, Steve,
Stephen Johnson, thank you so much for the $5 super chat saying they blocked certification, not collecting them. Quebec might be our greatest ally right now. They won't put up with the court interference. Exactly. And that's why we've been screaming to all the winds. Please talk to Quebec and let Quebec also fight for their own independence, because by doing so, they're also helping Alberta.
Yeah, we've been kind of screaming from the rooftops. We need to bring Quebec into the conversation. They're going to be a big asset for Alberta. I think people are finally starting to come around to that idea, and they're starting to look outside of Alberta, which is massively good. Number one, start a national conversation and an international conversation, but also to have allies on the political battlefield. And the PQ is one of those allies, I believe.
And Lyle Norman says, Kenny, you can't hold any water. Keith, mop the floor with your expensive fancy suit. I hate the Westminster government because I would have not voted for the bum.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people hold that sentiment, including me right now.
And because you have a king. Pete says, the Bloc is not the PQ. Yes, I know. I messed both up. Sorry. But that was the Bloc that spoke up. That lady with the red hair.
And then the PQ also spoke up. So
Yes,
you're having the Bloc speak up as well as the PQ. As far as allies go, I would look at the PQ, even though they're a provincial province, more of an ally, because I think they're a true independence party, where the Bloc, I think they just want to negotiate a better deal. And the Bloc is also being infiltrated by the Liberal Party right now behind the scenes. We talked a little bit about that yesterday.
Yeah. Ghost of a Chance, hello, says Jason Chameleon. Yes. and
Danielle
Jensen,
Chameleon as well.
Yeah.
It's looking more and more like that these days.
Stephen Jensen says, hello, everyone. Hello. Thank you for being here. Pete says, Steve listening in from the camp cook tent in Revelstoke. Thank you. Now Norman says, yes, I hold my head in shame to have had Kenny as a premier.
Yeah. And
At least you were able to get him out.
Yeah. Again, he tried to ride that populist wave, and that citizen-led initiative was something put forward by Jason Kenney himself. And now he's saying all these mechanisms that we're using that he's the one that actually built, we shouldn't be able to use.
Mm-hmm. Ghost of a Chance says, Jason had a golden opportunity to show his conservative bona fides and fell flat in his liberal face.
Yeah, well, he's completely...
It's more convenient for him.
He's completely captured and bought and sold at this point, and that was obvious after the jibby jab era. And now, once you're already on that side and you've been exposed, the only way for him to survive in his political career is to stay on the government-led initiative or the government stances, the approved stances.
Todd says, who can afford $10,000 a week? No one should be able to afford that. Well, companies can.
Companies can, yeah.
Todd says, we'll get you out one way or another, buddy. Don't worry. And Pete says, Rebel News has their own video truck. I believe that they devoted it to Alberta independence. Yes, because they created that special election advertising arm that Sheila Gunn-Reid is heading, or is leading, I guess.
Absolutely. But that truck would be a good long-term investment for Alberta independence. Number one, it is a truck and you can haul things with it, as well as you can advertise it on it, as well as you can rent it out. I know it would be a bigger investment, but as money starts to flow into Alberta independence, that would be one of the things I would kind of look into.
Yeah. Todd says, well, Todd has a better idea. Todd says, K-Guy, Alberta sign truck, brother, on it. Me and Steve will build it. Well, I'm sure you're handier than us, for example.
Yeah,
so
that's for sure.
I have more confidence in you guys. Silverfeet says, how do we put messages in the sky above Calgary and Edmonton? I guess you rent a plane, right? With the skywriting planes,
yeah,
right?
I think the truck would be a more cost-effective manner, and it could bring income in as well. But we do have the real Stephen Jensen again. Oh, no.
No.
Sorry.
That one we already had. Todd says, I'll build a sign truck, copy Ezra's. I'll call him so we can check out his and show us how it's built.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad idea. In reality, that's actually not a bad idea.
And again, it's not a bad idea. And I took a look at his sign truck, and I used to use a lot of trucks, especially when we worked in film and things like that. But putting the panels on the LED panels on the side and having the back door just being a regular sticker advertisement, because you want the back door to be going up and down. Having that sign on that back door must be one of the more expensive parts of the actual signs on the truck.
Thomas Muse says, the Bloc is just part of the Liberals with a mask, and the more they panic and make mistakes, the bigger the independence movement is growing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Within Quebec, yes. But I will say, because they still have to at least have the facade of wanting to fight for some sort of independence, at least for some sort of better deal, then it actually does help us when they stand up and say, no, you're insane, it's 50+1.
Well, and let's look around the world right now and what's going on. Nobody trusts their governments. The elites are the elites, and they have completely betrayed the people in almost every nation around the world. Even in countries where they somewhat like their president, overall, there's just a backlash against the elites that they can't make the kind of change that the people actually want.
Look at Spain right now. I mean, the protests there too, right after they unite the kingdom, or whatever it was called, right after Tommy Robinson's protest this past weekend, Spain also stood up against Pedro Sanchez.
Yeah, where I was kind of going with that is all around the world, it's the elites. And what seems to be the Federalist game plan is we're better united. We're better behind the elites. We're going to take care of you. We've had decades of that, over 100 years, and people are fed up with it. We've seen through it. That's not going to work, but we have to start enacting the counter messaging to that is we are a movement by the people for the people, and we no longer need politicians to affect change.
To infect change. Yeah, let's infect change. Troglodyte says democracy irks commies, and that is when their actual mask falls off, when they try to go against democratic principles that have ruled the West for who knows how long. 50+1 is the most logical and obvious one of them all, but them going against it just makes the mask fall off the commies a little bit more each day.
They're trying to destroy democracy. At the same time, they're saying democracy is great and that you want democracy. That's the voice of the people. That's how you heard. We're saying, well, we're going to go right around what the government is trying to do here. 50+1 is supposed to be the standard.
The problem is it's about their democracy, not real democracy. That's the difference. They get to decide what the democracy is. Stephen Jensen, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. You've already been very kind. Says, look up Ben Trudeau. He was involved in Quebec referendum, touring with Chris Scott, teaching us to take control of all areas of government away from the feds. He has written a great book about this. Yes, and I've been seeing, partly thanks to Freedom Calendar, that he has been speaking with on Chris Scott's Let's Talk to Albertans and in other events, and he is very interesting too.
Yeah, we're going to reach out to him because a long time ago I said it would be interesting to see what Ben Trudeau's
this is the other Ben Trudeau
take on this. Yeah.
Okay. Luke Couture says Kenny is an absolute washed out, irrelevant voice. He is actually sabotaging Alberta's youth's future. Ignore that wannabe.
Well, again, there's an A team and a B team for the Nationalist. Pierre Poilievre and Danielle Smith are on one side, where they're going to get a sympathetic crowd for Federalists within Alberta. And then you have the Jason Kenney, the Ninshi, the Jin from the Line Sign, which is kind of talking to the echo chamber. And it really has a hard-nosed approach, which isn't going to be able to plant seeds. We should really be focusing on the Pierre Poilievre, Danielle Smith side, because that's the actual dangerous side of the Federalists.
Yeah, the Nenshi, Kenny, Jen from the Line people are the F team. I wouldn't put them at B.
Yeah, and I wouldn't pay too much attention to them, because if we focus on them, we're going to get distracted from the real assault and the real messaging coming from the federal government.
Luke Couture says Alberta independence is not a left or right issue. It's a movement to save Alberta from communist Carney control.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with that. But Alberta has voted conservative for the last 93 years. And the direction Mark Carney is going, even if he starts approving national resource projects, ideologically, he's driving Canada off the liberal cliff. And it's all these liberal policies that we have to point out, especially because we are talking to Albertans that do vote conservative. So they are going to be sympathetic to, we don't want to go the direction Trudeau is taking the country.
Trudeau? Carney.
Oh, sorry, Carney.
Both
Carney and Trudeau.
All of them. All the Trudeaus, all the Carneys. William Robel says, Jason Kenney sounds scared. Yes, he does. And I think he's reacting on his PTSD from what happened to him and his own little story. And I think he's using this as a way to have vengeance on everybody.
I have a bit of a different take on it.
That's how I see it.
And I think he's scared because he thought he was going to have his second coming off of Alberta independence. There was even rumors of Pierre Poilievre, if they can get him to step down with a vote of no confidence, that Kenney would be the man that they put in there. The problem that they're having is Pierre Poilievre and Danielle Smith are looking to be the leaders of the Federalists against Alberta independence, not Jason Kenney. Jason Kenney's, the most outspoken, but he's not effective whatsoever. So I think his second coming into politics, he's seeing it quickly disappear. So I think he's having fears on a lot of different levels right now.
Maybe like you, he wakes up screaming because
I think
of the
he was
nightmares.
thinking he's going to tear down Pierre Poilievre and Danielle Smith and then take
get
their
it.
place. And it looks like they're all going to be torn down together. And if any,
Also, he's not that skilled to do that.
well, and if anybody survives, it's not going to be Kenney. Kenney is F level tier there.
William Mabel says, this is very true. Wasn't it Jason Kenney who was the premier of Alberta when the Citizen Initiative Act was enacted? Wasn't his government the one that had a referendum on equalization and then did nothing? Yeah, we showed him very proud when he announced it a while ago.
Yeah, we brought the old advertisement out, which he said, I'm bringing the Citizen-led initiative. It's the greatest thing ever. It gives citizens the voice. We were making fun of him on that, and we'll continue to replay that throughout this process leading up to October 19th.
Because so fast how he can forget when it's not convenient for him.
Well, it's going to be very easy to pick Pierre Poilievre apart too, because what he's saying is he doesn't want the people of Alberta to affect the change that he promised and failed to deliver, and he can't deliver for at least another 3 years now. All he can do is stand there and kind of complain. Alberta independence has a lot of the same first principles. We agree with him on a lot of things. Where we differ is we say we don't need Pierre Poilievre or a politician to affect change. We're going to do it ourselves now because the politicians have failed us on every level.
Time and time again.
Yeah.
Roland Halleck says, Kenney is a clown. That's why he was kicked out. Exactly. Also says, yes, he was a total liar and Danny is doing the same thing. So she will be gone too.
Yeah, absolutely.
In due time, I will say.
And we have to be very smart how we approach this Danielle Smith thing. And I think Mitch Sylvester has had this plan going for a long time. He's buying up UCP memberships. He knows when the next MLAs are going to be up. I'm sure he's working behind the scenes to find new candidates to replace the ones that aren't sympathetic to Alberta independence. And when the time's right, I think we pull the cord on Danielle Smith and we put the MLAs in there that we need.
But I think that is a key word, when the time is right and everything in due time.
And the time's not right before October 19th. All the efforts have to be going to October 19th right now. A Western Standard interview was conducted with Mitch Sylvester, which was very, very frank, and they asked very direct questions. And it seems like Mitch Sylvester also is focused on October 19th, but he has a more long-term game plan to take over the UCP, which I do like.
And that's what I was going to say. Focus, yes, on the October 19th referendum, but in the background, or at least getting together the ideas to then enact what the next step will take, which might be taking over the UCP, et cetera, not leaving that until the last moment when, now we have to do it, now we have to figure it out. You can, because it's a decentralized movement, you can concentrate on several different things.
You can't not have things working in the background where we're trying to get MLAs that are sympathetic to independence, because if we don't focus on that, what Danielle Smith is going to do is start ousting members that are independence supporters and things like this, and she's going to start clearing out the caucus. So we want to have a mechanism in order to, number one, buy memberships and get MLAs that we like into power.
Luke Couture says, exactly, Premier Smith must schedule the binding referendum question or she will go down in history as a failure and the premier who destroyed Alberta's youth's future, a legacy she needs to avoid. We've been telling her this since we started talking about Alberta independence.
Yeah, but we need to focus on something right now, and that is if she's agreeing to call the binding question after the October 19th referendum, we want that done in quick fashion. But what we're going to need for that to get done is a consultation with First Nations. So she needs to call that immediately to show that she is in line with Alberta independence, at least to some degree. Otherwise, she's going to just say, I can't call a binding referendum because we haven't had a consultation. So call the consultation now. Everybody in Alberta independence needs to be calling on her to have this consultation now. That, number one, shows that she's still in line with Alberta independence and willing to call a binding question at some point quickly after October 19th. Because if she doesn't do that consultation now, she's just setting up that binding question that she might call for failure by having the courts challenge it and saying you never did a consultation. Do the consultation now. Get it out of the way.
Roland Halleck says, we need to appeal to Trump to annex us. No, we're not there yet. I don't think we ever will be there. And it's not a great idea because, as you always say, and you lived half and half in Canada and the US, Well, the US is bipolar, and Alberta has been consistently voting Conservative for 93 years. So why not give that an opportunity, for a real actual opportunity?
Yeah, we have an actual foundation where we can plan out a future. Every 4 or 8 years, you're going to get a Liberal or a Democrat in there that's going to try to undo what the Conservative did. There's no long-term vision. It takes a long time to enact change in the United States because the country is so bipolar in its voting habits. Alberta, 93 years with a consistent Conservative vote.
Thomas Muse, last comment before we head into Alberta politics, says, yeah, the PQ is more of a true independence movement. The Bloc is fake. They're fake, but right now they're usefully fake. So let them, at least for now, continue to pretend to fight for independence, but they're doing it in the House of Commons against Carney.
Well, and I want to bring this up right now. The Liberals are infiltrating the Bloc as we speak. We talked about it on yesterday's show. Carney is sending a lot of people over to run for a lot of positions for the Bloc. So I'm very concerned about the long-term outlook for the Bloc.
True. And Real Stephen Jensen, thank you so much for the $5 super chat saying Kenny is a used car salesman. The car is the beauty and it runs great. Nothing to see here under the hood, right? LOL.
I think we're going to show later. Let me see if it is. It might be on the night show, actually. We're going to show the new Ferrari that came out, and the owner of Ferrari is absolutely mortified because it's turning into a Chinese car company the way the new car looks. It's absolutely
kind of like Jaguar,
ridiculous.
when Jaguar did the big reveal and nobody liked it.
We need to bring back American muscle cars made of real steel. No more plastic EVs.
Well, Ferrari's Italian, but yes. Okay, now let's go into Alberta politics.
He doesn't discuss federal politics. He only concerns himself with Alberta's independence.
He got angry at me for saying that Ferrari is Italian.
And I wasn't bringing up that the Ferrari wasn't Italian. Obviously it is. What I'm saying is we need to bring back American muscle cars. No electric, no plastic. I don't think you know anything about cars.
I do. I have a bunch of videos on them. Blaze says, this is quite the scene. Canoe, scolds Smith and then holds EB as a partner to Alberta. Wild. Yeah, again, him thinking that he has the power and ability to do so.
But we want to make sure that we have a very clear understanding of what the duty to consult really means and what it, and I think at the moment there's a lack of clarity on that. And you've heard a lot about...
I'd like to respond. So I think we know that is not correct. A lot of what you just said there, Premier Smith.
And pause it here. And this is very interesting. We played this on yesterday's episode, but it's one of the more important clips that came out. They're going to have Danielle Smith say something, and then they're going to have the other premiers give the final word and give the stronger answer and have her not really reply. And that's how they get this narrative in line for the Federalists. And you see this Uniparty forming with almost every single premier now getting in line with Carney because they want natural resource deals, because they want to federalize natural resources, and they're going to sell it as this is a win for the people. No, this is total control, so you can never break free.
Specifically, and we spoke about this, so I don't mind repeating this. It is not up to the petition gatherers to fulfill the duty to consult. It is up to you as the Alberta government to fulfill the duty to consult. And in this case...
Pause it again. And I just said that. Okay, let's get Danielle Smith to have a consultation now. Not for October 19th because it's non-binding, but for after. Because if she's going to consider calling an actual binding question, she's going to need that duty to consult. She needs to get it out of the way now. There are obviously going to be hurdles in front of her. So she's going to have to constantly have to push this consultation with the First Nations tribes. So he's right. She needs to get it started now. Alberta Independence should start pressuring her to have that consultation now so they don't have an excuse later on.
When there's clearly going to be an impact on well-established existing hunting and fishing rights by putting up an international border, if some would have their way, the judge ruled, and I would agree with the judge's ruling, that is going to infringe on rights. And so there is a duty to consult. Now, to take a step further, for the Albertan who's been frustrated over the lack of progress on pipelines, he's got the Premier of BC announcing LNG. We're working on Churchill. We're working on northern trade corridors. This is a moment to get big things built in Manitoba. And I would say now is the time to work together. Why don't we hold off on this referendum talk for a year or two and see if we get these...
We don't want to hold off because we don't want we want no pipelines, we want no deals until after an independence vote, because she's agreeing to all these MOUs that are federalizing natural resources, putting massive amounts of dollars into the federal government's pockets, and agreeing to carbon taxes and other things that are going to kill our industry over a long period of time. This is a federalization of natural resources, because just because you get contracts doesn't mean those are good contracts. We want private industry coming in and funding these things, not the federal government.
Pipelines under construction, because at the end of the day, we want Canada to succeed. We're all very proud of this place. I myself am very, very patriotic. And what I think it's important for us to say when we hear this sorts of discussion happening here in Alberta is for us to say, okay, thank you, First Nations in Alberta, for hitting the pause button on this. Now the rest of Canada, let's work together and show Alberta just how appreciated they are in the rest of this country.
And the best way Alberta can be successful, and British Columbia and Manitoba, is to be successful on their own. So when they come together, they can build a powerhouse if they want to come together. But if they're not strong on their own and they require all of Canada in order to get things done, this is called federalization. And that's why they want to link everything from one province to another. So everything has to go through the federal government.
Mm-hmm. And from CPAC says, quote, the most motivated people are who are angry, grieved, and want to separate. And again, Jen Gerson, one of my favorite people, ironically, it's a political columnist and co-founder of The Line that nobody watches, says Danielle Smith may be underestimating how quickly Alberta's referendum debate could escalate, warning the vote could be viewed as a costless protest vote against Ottawa, driven by deep frustration with the status quo.
I would say actually Jen from The Line and Danielle Smith are the thought leaders as of right now for the left. Those are the two people I kind of listen to know the direction they're going. They actually give fair enough analysis on their game plan when they look at Alberta independence, which means they're actually able to make functional strategies going forward. So,
but we bring her up here so you don't have to go watch.
Yeah.
How much risk do you think Danielle Smith is taking by going down this road? And to what extent does she risk really emboldening or unleashing something that she then find herself unable to control?
Yeah, so I want to say firstly, I think Janet Brown is like the top pollster in Alberta, and I absolutely take her research very, very seriously, and I think she's right. My fear about how this is going to play out is just remember is that, you know, if you take a poll of all Albertans, not all of those Albertans actually come out and show up and vote. The most motivated come up to vote, right? And right now, the most motivated are people who are angry, grieved, and want to separate. Secondly, the structure of the question, I think fundamentally makes it almost impossible to poll adequately, because now you've created a question that isn't about separating from Canada. Now you've created a question that allows the separatists to frame this as a costless protest vote.
Mm-hmm. And anytime you hear another leftist repeat this, it's always coming from her. She's the first one. She is the thought leader on the left. Her analysis is fair, even though I don't agree with her opinion of Alberta should stay in Canada. I watch her because she's the one that's really coming up with the plans of attack and things like that. Her and Danielle Smith are the two on the most dangerous people on the left.
Show Ottawa, don't you worry, there will be no consequences. You can vote for the serious question later. And that means that people who are motivated by the cultural grievances that I'm talking about, motivated by the longstanding economic grievances in the sense of alienation, they'll show up. The ballot question isn't going to be the question that's written on the ballot. The ballot question is going to be some version of, are you happy with the status quo? Are you happy with Ottawa? Or are you alienated? And everybody who's motivated because they're alienated is going to show up to make a point. And that's how we get from 30%, 40%, 50%. I don't know how far that can go. And I'm not sure that anyone can know at this point how far that could go.
Exactly. And we're allowed to not be okay with the status quo and actually use that to our advantage to get more people to go vote for having a second referendum.
Well, and she's on liberal shows here, so she's using bad polling of 30, 40, and maybe even 50% one day. The polling shows 60% for that question that she's proposing now. People want to send a message to Ottawa and to the politicians for the last decades of failure. Mm-hmm. But when that's coming from the left, you know they're concerned. And the reason she's having to say it now within the echo chamber is because they're falling behind and they don't have a real game plan going forward that's going to effectively work.
And I think also specifically after the Kenny Wilson debate, when they saw that their current talking points that they've been trying to amplify further and further aren't working. The 51st state thing, propaganda thing is not working. The Russian collusion, whatever they wanted to do with that, it isn't working either. The whole, they're extremists, also kind of not working anymore. So this is what they're seeing could actually impact what they want to do, and it will.
Well, and the other reason they're in big trouble, they're noticing it's not working. So they tapped Smith on the shoulder. They tapped Poilievre on the shoulder. They tapped all the national conservatives on the shoulder. The problem is now they're going to have the optic of it's the elites and the politicians against the citizens themselves, trying to enact the change the politicians promised but couldn't deliver. The optics of all these politicians lining up on the other side against a bunch of citizens that all they want is their country back does not look good.
This is actually helping us a lot with the reality of the narrative that they've created themselves, furthered themselves as well. Jill says, quote, Carney just confirmed Ottawa can reject a majority vote under the Clarity Act. Smith knows this. She has always known this, and she will give us a weak, non-binding question instead of using the power she already has.
And she knows, and just like she said, she knows this. She's always known this, and this is why now we need to put pressure on Danielle Smith to create a consultation with the First Nations, whether you're going to use it or not. I know she's going to need that to call the binding question later, so that binding question has one less opportunity to get blocked. It's also a way to make her show some allegiance to Alberta independence. Not that she's going to be on the independent side, but she's going to play this as democracy first. If she's not willing to call a consultation with the First Nations very quickly, she's showing her true colors now.
And so I will ask again, are we really still giving her the benefit of the doubt? Time to stop fighting amongst one another, and I agree with that, in our time to deal with the problem.
Are we still giving Danielle Smith the benefit of the doubt, working with Mark Carney? Because, he's just online saying that 50+1 for a referendum doesn't count under the Clarity Act. This is the guy that your premier wants to work with. And he's really not wrong. The federal government gets to decide if the question is good enough. We know the question is bullshit now, so that doesn't matter. But he's basically saying that if we ever were to get a binding question, that, you better have a big-ass fucking number behind you, because he's going to block it. He gets to decide if that number is efficient. So what the hell does that tell you? It tells me that even if we were to go to a referendum and have a binding question, this motherfucker ain't gonna play ball. And we already know how Danielle feels about it. You think that she is so stupid? She fucking knows this. Time for us to start working together, start getting a hell of a lot louder, start buying those UCP memberships. This is far from over. We're gonna let Maxwell's buddy tell us if we can leave. If we can't leave, this guy can get fucked. Okay, bye.
Sorry for the language that I didn't realize. Yeah.
And also, if you're coming at this in the replay and for some reason there was nothing playing, it was because we got... No, I know, but I'm saying it's because we got copyrighted on YouTube. Sometimes I have to remove certain videos because they have music.
But no, because we played in 1.25 speed.
It's happened before. It happened recently. That's why I'm clarifying it, because someone said, why did it jump from suddenly? So I'm explaining now. Just in case, I'd rather prevent it. But now let's go into your comments, and then we'll head into Alberta Personalities. Todd says, gonna start a moving company and use it for that too on the side. Move my family members when they need to move. They're all getting older. And then you have a truck as well.
Exactly. And that's we need interesting ways to maximize our resources here and bring revenue into Alberta independence to fund other projects.
True. Pete says, or rent a Chinese weather balloon. Yeah, since the Canadian government has no idea how to take them down. It'll just fly all over the place, over and over until the U.S. decides that they're done. Todd says, "Okay, just on the sides, guys, so I can use it for mine and Steven's moving company." Exactly. And Todd says, his own little story, lol, poor Jason. No, I don't feel no pity for him. Todd says, Mitch and Jeff and Keith and Leighton Gray should also be involved in the consultation to be sure it's fair and the right info is getting out there, not propaganda from the feds.
Yeah, absolutely. True. Absolutely. We need people involved in this. I don't agree that there should be a consultation, and I don't think that's actually the requirement, but that's the way they're going to keep trying to block us. So we need to cut them off at the pass and just hold this consultation, hold it now. And you even seen one of the other freaking premiers saying it's not the citizens' duty. It's Danielle Smith's duty. So she's not the one to do it. They're going to try to block that as well. So we need to make sure she does it. We need to make sure that people from Alberta Independence, the decentralized leadership is there as well. So they don't say that we didn't hold the consultation. We need to try to cut every single way they're going to block this in the court system. We need to cut that off.
Todd says, haha, guy's mad now. It's easy to get him mad. I poke his buttons. Because he has this he knows what he wants to say. So if I don't let him say it, if I don't let him say it, he gets very angry because then he
No,
loses
I don't
his
get
point.
angry.
You do.
Come on, keep going.
Todd
here.
says.
Todd says. What does Todd know?
Everything. Todd also says, bring back the steel body muscle cars, Nat. How dare you, Greta voice. No, I agree. Bring it back. Again, I have a bunch of videos, both in Spanish and in English, talking about the dismay of what a lot of car companies have done, especially, for example, Tata Motors with the Land Rover, but also Jaguar, also going towards an Indian company and completely changing the style just to please the few woke ones that are more on bicycles and that can afford Jaguar. I've talked about this a lot before. Todd says,
and even the modern muscle cars aren't made of real steel and things like that.
No.
We want classic American muscle back.
Yeah, Ford messed up real good. Todd says, old wobbly canoe. Old canoe. Yes, and wobbly again. No thanks, wobbly. Pete says,
yeah, but we need to listen to what Carney's saying as well as Canoe. They're kind of showing their hand, meaning Danielle needs to be the one calling the consultation. Yeah. Otherwise, they're going to try to block that and use that as a mechanism. When Carney says 50+1 isn't enough, okay, we need to challenge that and push back on that, but we also need to go forward and try to go for 60 or even 70. Mm-hmm. We have a question that's in our advantage right now.
Yes, even Jen said it.
The problem with this 50+1 isn't actually the first referendum, because the question on the first referendum favors us to get 60%. It's the second referendum for actual independence. So, and that's why he's trying to muddy the waters now.
Yes, and make it easier for him down the line.
Yeah.
The line, Jen Gerson. Pete says, no, Thomas, they panic because we pay the bills. But now let's go into the other comments. Hold on. So we can make sense of some of those that I just read. Roland Halleck says, we need to just declare separation, period.
Yeah,
I declare it.
Yeah, but we'll need control of the UCP and we'll need somebody other than Danielle Smith in there. So that's more of a long-term strategy. Let's just go along with this, take over the UCP, and then at some point, if we need to, just declare unilateral independence at a certain point if the government's not going to let us even have a vote.
Mm-hmm. James Hunt says, it'd be nice if Edmonton and Calgary was like New York City, where you could just post things up on giant billboards where you could get news. Yeah. Like the digital ones that they have all over the place.
Yeah, but again, those are static. It's nice when it can actually move as well.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the times you're going to want those at events and things like that. Mm-hmm. So you can haul all of your gear in the truck. And then you already have the truck kind of where you wanted to go. And you advertise all the way to that event as well. Also, when you're doing the blue rolls or the slow rolls and things like that, you want people that are passersby to kind of see a message. They're going to see all the flags. They get that part, but to be able to put a message on a billboard there would be absolutely fantastic as well.
Or a movable sort of sign of some kind. Luke says, I hate to say this, but if Alberta fails at independence and I can't move out of China, I may move to Quebec if they succeed to gain independence.
Oh, God.
That would be another strategy.
Quebec is actually a lot really conservative outside of the major cities, but
Nico was telling us.
Yeah. I'm concerned. I support Quebec independence as well. I'm just concerned about their ideology. I kind of have a belief where I hope once they get to independence, they're going to pull out their bootstraps. They're going to become a lot more conservative because now their future isn't in their own hands. Right now, they don't access a lot of their natural gas and other things because they want the remittance payments. I hope that's the case, but I don't know if they'll actually go in that direction once they get independence. Now, I'll support them, and I hope that is their future, but I don't know if I would bank your own future on Quebec.
Then maybe you can just take a boat to the U.S. Luke Couture says, don't forget to hit the like button. Yes, thank you so much. We always try to get to 100 likes. Otherwise, the guy gets mad.
What are you talking about?
No, I'll use that as a threat. Roland Halleck says, don't have to consult natives. They are government employees.
You're the one that beats me every night.
Yes, that's very believable. William Robel says, oh, yes. Now, the corruption police raided the ruling socialist PSOE offices in Spain. I know. And Pedro Sanchez says, I could talk about this all day, but right now we're focusing on Alberta independence. But yes, we do see people now reacting against the global liberal order that they had been subjugated under. And I was glad to also see the protests, but this as well, the PSOE going down.
But you also have to realize, because we have a decentralized movement and we're not working through a political party, it's very hard for them to declare the political party a certain way or a certain thing, as well as they can't raid the headquarters of a political party because we are a decentralized network of different organizations. It's a big advantage.
Mm-hmm. Troglodyte says, They say they want to support democracy in Ukraine, where elections have been suspended, and keep sending money for it as well. Roland Halleck says federalizing is what Venezuela did, straight up commies. Yeah, that is the mechanism they use. Here in Mexico, a bunch of things happen similarly too. Charlotte says, I'm so done with milquetoast conservatives. Oh, I was done a while ago.
Yeah. And man, it's just so hard for me to watch provincial news from other places like British Columbia. They're really getting behind these milquetoast conservatives that put them in the position they're already in. And they're trying to act like it's going to be this big change. You have Dallas Brody right there. You have the One BC party. That's a non-compromising party that is really holding the line on what real conservatism is. People need to get behind that, not these conservatives that are going to tell you one thing to win an election and then sell you out.
Because unfortunately, they've realized that things are so bad that if they can just be a little bit milquetoast conservatives, then they can, number one, attract the most number of people, but number two, not really have to deliver on many of the things that they say they want to do. Again, the Conservative Party in BC kicked out Dallas Brody and then took her entire platform to run with.
Yeah.
And now they're being hailed as, oh my God, they're so great. Roland Halleck says 46% of natives vote for us or for independence. Yeah, exactly. That poll has already been conducted. Yvette DeVoe, hello, says there's nothing worse than a patient totalitarian politician with a long-term plan.
Yeah.
Because then they enact it slowly.
Well, and it's just so obvious to me after that meeting of the Western premiers yesterday. It is a uniparty. They're getting in line. Smith is buying David Eby boots and everything else. It's the romance that is budding amongst the premiers in Western Canada.
Chocolate says smug canoe. Yeah. Roland Halleck says Manitoba's capital has the owl design like the DC cabal.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Roland Halleck says consult only after the question has been asked.
Yeah, well,
but they can do it now and then it's done.
Obviously, that's the case, and that's what's laid out in the legal pathway. The problem is, when she calls that binding question, they're going to use the same mechanism to try to block that one. If they get another ideological judge, we're screwed. So we just need her to conduct a consultation now. It's not going to hurt us to pressure Danielle Smith to have a consultation with the First Nations. That also Alberta independence leadership can kind of be there. So we cut off two birds with one stone, meaning we've consulted First Nations as well as Danielle Smith has consulted First Nations.
And Charlie Light says WAP gets $5 billion in equalization. He has no canoe to stand in. No. Roland Halleck says he's a clown like Kenny. Again, the F team. Failure team. Luke Couture says there is no need to consult before the binding referendum question is asked. Consultation is a must only after a successful yes vote.
Yeah, we know that's what's laid out in law, but that's not the game that the federal government is playing. And now we're on a 1.5 to 2 year timeline. If we want to shorten that timeline back down, we just need to get ahead of it and conduct a consultation that actually doesn't matter in the long run of things. Just conduct it so we can shorten the timeline. They're extending the timeline by ignoring what's laid out in law. So I understand when people say this is what's laid out. Yeah, we all understand, yet the judges are ruling against us anyway.
Charlotte says, consult does not equal consent, First Nations. Get over it. That's the main thing.
Well, and that's the point. She just consults with them. Okay, we're done the consultation. It doesn't mean we need consent.
Thomas Muse says they panic way more than in Quebec in 95 because now way more people are aware of the corruption. They're running out of lies and they're going to sink. Yeah, and that's why they're panicking, because they know that there is no real way that they can defend themselves anymore.
Well, I think the real panic is Mark Carney has a timeline for globalism, and he's been put to the front as the globalist leader, and he's the one that has to push back against Trump at the same time. In order to do all this, he has to keep pushing policies that is only going to help Alberta independence, and it's going to destroy the Canadian economy. He's obviously moving Canada closer and closer to the EU every single day.
And Charlie Light says, have a Snickers, guy. Lol. I should have like a little bag of Snickers, and if you like send a $1, I'll just feed him with a Snicker. The little ones, the bite-sized one. That's a good idea.
That's not a good idea.
I'm going to go buy some Snickers now.
Okay, let's continue.
Well, you get to eat them.
Okay.
I don't like Snickers. I like Milky Way.
I don't eat candies.
Oh, yes, you do.
No, I don't.
Yesterday, you ate a whole
I have
peanut
a little
butter
bit
bar.
as a reward once in a while. Very rarely. Not like you. You go to the store, you just throw the sugar in the basket.
I buy it, but I never actually eat them.
What's in your cup every day?
You eat them. Sugar-free Monster.
Monster.
Sugar-free Monster.
Okay, let's keep going. Jay, you
to put up with you. I need the energy, believe me. But now let's go into Alberta personalities. I'll get some Snickers later.
Alberta's Canada.
No, Alberta Personalities. We haven't done them.
Okay.
But they need to understand that Albertans are done. We're leaving, and there's no more conversation to be had. I know that's upsetting to people.
Can you just repeat that real quick?
You were right.
Thank you. Starting with Berta Proud Dad that says, quote, David Eby says Canada is stronger united. Funny how unity always means Alberta keeps paying while politicians in other provinces block the prosperity that keeps this country alive. That's not unity, that's a bad deal. And Albertans are finally saying it out loud.
Yeah, Western leaders are just uniting so Mark Carney can pimp them all out at the same time here.
This is why I hate politics. Check this out.
That a unified Canada is what enables all of the work that we want to do together to build a strong economy, to build the kind of country that we want. And
You say a unified Canada, hey?
Okay, and we can leave it there, and we'll go right into Alberta's Canada if we can.
Mm-hmm.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people.
Caught me off guard there. Now going to your little plan. Okay, let's go. Starting with Rebel News saying, quote, Carney stresses that the upcoming vote about a potential independence referendum in Alberta is non-binding and won't actually be impactful.
So non-binding, the Clarity Act, these are his mechanisms of attack along with ideological judges. So we need to cut this off as best as possible. When it comes to the 50+1 in the Clarity Act, we need Quebec to step up. Mm-hmm. When it comes to a non-binding question, we need Danielle Smith to agree to ask a binding question in quick fashion. We also need to pressure her now to have a consultation so that binding question does not get blocked by the courts. And then, oh God, I forgot the third point, but we'll leave it there.
I gave just to be clear, because it is a question about a question. I mean, it's it's explicit in the question that it's not a binding referendum. This is what I expected, but as I said in French, that as Prime Minister on particular issues of a constitutional nature, I like to make sure I have the official advice before, which is why yesterday I was careful in terms of my. No, it is not. It is not for under a Clarity Act. It is absolutely not, and I would just recommend that you read the Clarity Act. It's very clear. Not surprisingly, the Clarity Act is very clear, and a determination, and there's a series of conditions which I responded in the House for the.
This is a non-binding question. That's what I expected. Was there consultations made in the back room with Danielle Smith and Mark Carney? Rumors are getting out there. I know Jeff Rath has let a few things leak. So very interesting, because as far as I'm concerned, she could have called the binding question. She also could have had a consultation and then called the binding question. But we're moving forward now with October 19th, non-binding question. And we need to get our ducks in the row for what comes after that.
But also, as Rath has pointed out, as we have pointed out, as others have pointed out, the excuses are running thin on why she couldn't call the referendum herself, not as the citizen initiative one, but herself and consulting prior. And I think if we continue to question that, she'll run out of ways to excuse it.
Well, Derek from the Unacceptable Fringe said he's going to get an interview with her. Yeah. Man, I really want to see that interview, because those are the questions we need to ask her, and we need answers on those. When is the next referendum? Why isn't that one going to be blocked? Why couldn't you call a binding referendum in the first place? Why hasn't a consultation been had yet? Because you're going to need a consultation before you can actually call a non-binding question, according to the courts. I know that's not laid out within the legal jargon, but now we know there's going to be roadblocks. I really hope she does go on the Fringe, and I really hope he does get that interview.
But from the National Post, we do have this from Jamie Sarkanak saying, quote, Danielle Smith gets it, Aboriginal rights have gone too far.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're going to continue to go too far. This is how they plan to take private property rights away. The Liberals had a chance to stand up in British Columbia and squash the entire thing just a few days ago. They advised their lawyers not to say anything and people to vote against it, this is why they want to set the precedent in British Columbia and bring it across the rest of Canada. You will own nothing and you will be happy is the Liberal globalist game plan.
But especially with what's going on in Alberta and parallel to BC as well, I think it's a great way to bring up that conversation past Alberta being independent, or past just British Columbia losing its private property rights, both of which are insane, but bring it up as, hey, maybe we want to rethink all of this, because look at the consequences that are now being lived by many, many people.
Yeah.
I said that not as good as I could have, but
Many people.
you got it. Angela Unspoken says, quote, Mark Carney is using his intellect to pillage Canadians while enriching his billionaire friends. When he has completed his mission, you will own nothing and you will be happy. Or at least you'll have to be happy, I guess.
And Canadians like Mark Carney, in my view, because he's not Trudeau. Trudeau, forget the last 10 years of failure. But he wears a suit, he's on time, he seems sharp. People say he's the smartest man in the room. The smartest men in the room, in my view, are not always the best politicians or the best PMs or the best leaders, because otherwise we would have all these smart people around the world.
I think he's one lousy leader. I had an open mind a year ago. I think he has disappointed me in a huge way. I think that.
And how's that?
Well, because of what you're trying to walk around. When a guy talks to you and you listen to him and you are made to feel small, you are made to feel like your country is kind of shaking and you don't know when it's going to stop, and you don't really know why, except that there's a guy making it happen. And he thinks he's the smartest person in the room. Indeed, he may well be. He can't act that way, because the average guy out there is not thinking about whether his prime minister is the smartest person in the room. He's thinking about whether or not he's going to be able to pay the goddamn mortgage next week.
Absolutely. Then why are Canadians still flocking to him? He's so high in the polls.
Because they think that they were defaulting to Poilievre because they couldn't bring themselves to vote for Trudeau. Now comes a guy who has a room full of diplomas and citations, who has been the governor of the Bank of Canada, who has been the governor of the Bank of England, who has been a huge mover and shaker in the days when the ecosystems of our country and the rest of the world were a big deal, which I might say they are no longer. This is not top of mind anymore, and thank God that's gone. He just doesn't think so. And the problem is we're dealing with what he thinks. And smart as you may be, Mark Carney, you're thinking the wrong thoughts. The thoughts you've got to think are the thoughts that people express at the kitchen table. It's what husbands and wives talk about. It's what young couples talk about. The young couples who are in their 30s and together make a six-figure income, and why we don't know are sitting in their parents' home in Oakville because they can't go out and buy anything. This is the problem of Canada. It's the problem of people, not just in big cities and small cities, and we've got to get around it, and we don't have the guy at the top who understands.
So he is a smart guy, no question about it.
No question.
But smart people don't necessarily make, and we have in Canada a long history of smart premiers and smart prime ministers who have been failures. And are you suggesting that unless Carney changes, he could be a failure?
I think he is already a failure. I think he will be a failure unless he introduces radical change.
And the thing is, he can't consider the thoughts of the husband and wife struggling or thinking how they're going to pay the mortgage, because that goes against his globalist plan.
And the fracturing's happening behind the scenes, even in the Liberal caucus, and the Conservatives want to call him out, but with Alberta independence there, that's the thing. The more fracturing that happens, and the more unity they try to show in a national Canada, the more it helps Alberta independence, because people can see right through the BS they're trying to sell, not just Albertans, but now they're having to sell this line of BS, not just to Albertans, but to all of Canada. And people have seen through this for the last decade now.
But now we'll go into your comments before we head over into Alberta and the world. Todd says, I'll have the truck ready and waiting for you, guy. Haul all your gear in it, man. I'll reread it when he gets back. He laughed. Todd says, we'll make the logs heavy duty, extra strength Tylenol. Thank you. Todd says that has their own personal punching bag. Not fair. He doesn't let me. He knows jujitsu. Of course he knows how to stop a punch. Not that I would want to hit him. Todd says WEF bought Conservatives. They bought a bunch of people. Pete says, right on, 1BC is the right party. Who needs a Doug Ford Conservative in BC? And yet everybody's cheering and flocking towards the Conservative Party in BC. Hold on. Todd had said that he'll have the truck ready and waiting for you.
We're coming.
With all your gear. All our gear.
We're coming with freedom.
She also says that I have my own personal punching bag, but he knows jiu-jitsu, so he knows how to stop a punch. Todd says, 1BC, let's go. Yes. And again, we do have that interview with Dallas Brody on the channel where she talks about Alberta independence.
Well, and people around the world are starting to wake up. I know a lot of people thought Reform UK was going to be something, and their mask is starting to slip, and that's why you're seeing Reform Britain, or is it called Restore Britain is really coming up, because they're really holding up the line on those first principles, and they're gonna have that rise. And I think 1BC can be that party within British Columbia, and Alberta is that movement within Canada that it's holding strong first principles, and we're not gonna compromise anymore.
True. And Lyle Norman says, talking romance, Jeff Rath says Danielle Smith is Carney's girlfriend. I like Jeff.
I thought it was Danielle Smith and David Eby.
He's too gay.
She was buying him boots.
Yeah, because he's gay. He likes shoes. Todd says Jeff's the main man. Todd says Mark is dumb and lazy, not smart. I don't think he's dumb. I mean, I think a lot of people, and we've said this before, a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that Mark Carney's dumb. No, he's an opportunist, and he will go towards whatever opportunity is best for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think his game plan now was to lengthen this thing out with Alberta independence and federalize natural resources so Alberta can't separate.
Mm-hmm. Todd says, like an old twig, snaps like F with my pinky fingers. Mark Carney, I'm guessing. And Todd Muse says, also because we pay the bills, but this time they can't put a plan out to corrupt the vote.
Yeah.
And also says that Thomas Muse says, by the way, you got my name right, Nat. Thanks.
Good.
Roland Halleck says, Q2 Highway put one on all overpasses. Q2 Highway put one on all overpasses. A sign, I'm guessing. Roland also says, gave up on Scott Moe after watching him, I guess.
Yeah, Scott Moe, I've been calling him out for a long time. He is not going to help Saskatchewan independence in any way, shape, or form. He's right in line with Mark Carney. Even these policies he tries to sell as conservative, this is the same thing Danielle Smith does as well. Mm-hmm. She thinks people aren't smart enough to recognize what's really behind this MOU and what's really behind the 9 other questions with muddying the water. Scott Moe's example of this, and this is just one of many examples he has, is I'm going to protect your firearms. As long as you register your firearms with the provincial government, we'll protect them and we won't let the federal government take them until the federal government is willing to pay fair market value. So that means your firearms are only protected until the government's willing to pay fair market value. That's not protecting firearms, Scott Moe. Mm-hmm. That's the opposite of it.
And again, he's a deer in the headlights in China with Mark Carney, as he says, one world order. New, sorry. Well, one world order. Smitty 25 CA, says the federal government is an anchor around Alberta's neck.
Absolutely, and it's been for a long time.
Luke Couture says Alberta is facing its modern 1776 event. Wake up and get out get out of the slave mentality and know we can prosper without communist Ottawa's control.
And I would say this to all provinces. Some provinces are far more liberal than Alberta. I like Alberta's chances on their own because we're conservative and we have a good internal economy. But every province would be better on its own because it actually could govern itself in the direction it wants to go.
Roland Halleck says word salad must have learned from Trudeau, or maybe Trudeau learned from him in this case, I think, because he was one of the architects and puppeteers behind the scenes during Trudeau. So maybe Trudeau learned from him instead. Smitty says central bank governors are under the BIS Switzerland. They're not independent entities. Mm-hmm. New world order. And one world order. James Hunt says a thief is a smart person so long as they can never get caught. Carney is that type of smart.
Yeah, I think people can see what he's doing, though, and that's the problem. There's no mechanisms or recourse at this point. That's why we need independence, and then maybe we can charge Carney with something.
Lastly, Todd says he may not be dumb, but he's definitely lazy.
Yeah. Well, because if we got our independence and then we made a lot of international charges for a lot of these criminals that have exploited Alberta's natural resources and a lot of other things, that would guarantee they're never coming to Alberta, which I like.
True. But now let's go into Alberta and the world.
Yeah.
And starting with from Mary Neufel, another an actual crazy communist. Mary Neufel says, Mamdani announced the city will strip landlords of their buildings and hand them to tenants and community groups, because that's a great idea. It's called expropriations, the most aggressive challenge to private property rights that an American city has attempted in decades. Well, if only they had First Nations people.
Well, either it's through First Nations or it's through the mayor itself. One way or another, you're going to own nothing and be happy.
Through our new citywide campaign, Fix the City, we will focus on the worst landlords in New York City. When necessary, we will take aggressive legal action to remove negligent owners and property managers. And for buildings that have suffered chronic neglect, we will work to transfer ownership to responsible stewards. Stewards that include community land trusts, nonprofits, or even the tenants themselves. Through our new citywide...
Not putting the private property in the hands of nonprofits, absolutely crazy. This is a big scheme to steal people's private property and put it in the hands of their friends and their NGOs.
It's May 27. Let's make a bet how long it takes for that whole little system to collapse, as many of the other things he's proposed and tried to enact also have collapsed under their own weight because socialism and communism don't work.
What are you talking about? Mondana means the hope the hope for the future of America.
Trigonometry says, quote, if you've ever wondered why dating feels so different today, you need to listen to this. Too many options are killing commitment.
Yeah, Nat, I have options.
The fact that I can laugh about that, it says it.
So ancestrally, we would have encountered perhaps a few dozen potential mates in our entire lifespan because we didn't have cars, airplanes, internet, or anything else, so you're geographically limited. And now we live in large urban settings, and then the internet with dating sites, they provide us access to thousands or potentially millions of potential mates who live thousands of miles away. They can be in another country and sometimes are. So this is one huge, what we call an evolutionary mismatch. And sometimes this produces, and I think this is a speculation, but a reasonable one, decision paralysis. So they've shown this in studies of, you go to a high-end supermarket and they have these 6 jams you can taste, and then you taste several and then say, oh, I like the peach or whatever, and you buy one. But they've shown if you give people 24, they taste them and they just can't decide. There's too many to decide. It's decision paralysis. And I think some of that goes on in the mating world. So you get, well, there's so many potential mates to choose from, and I got matched with this person, no, that person. And maybe there's someone just a little bit better, on the next match. And so I think there's this reluctance to commit to one choice, whereas in ancestral environments, you have just a few to choose from, and you choose one and make the commitment.
And I will say we need to get back to a sense of community and things like this, whether it's government or dating circles or anything else, getting back down where things are centered around the city, the community. It's only going to be a benefit.
And also this all goes towards the whole population collapse issue that is happening all over the place, and where, it's all connected, but where they're having to replace citizens and people with migration and with cheaper labor and lower wages as well. So it all kind of connects to each other of this modern world we're living in.
Again, with Alberta getting its independence, we can really put a lot of the political power in the hands of the cities, the communities at that level, and less power at the federal government level.
And help incentivize young couples and people to have the means and the ability to actually start a family, actually get involved in their community, actually raise their children as they should, faith, family, freedom.
Yeah.
And Peter St. Ong says, quote, company fires entire HR department. Oh, I saw this. Stock soars as culture goes from woke clown show to get her done.
Yeah, my comment on X today for this was the entire Canadian government is one big HR department. Get rid of them all.
Are the days numbered for the Human Resources Department, that crusher of excellence, spawner of pronoun police, handmaiden of Leviathan? Last week, X was positively electric with news that once mighty Silicon Valley darling Bolt laid off its entire HR department, saying it, quote, created problems that didn't exist. Shockingly, everything got better. Now, this follows Elon Musk famously nuking the Twitter HR department and also finding less is more, certainly when it comes to the HR goblins. In Bolt's case, the company had gone from $11 billion valuation to $300 million, 97% off, as the culture went from sprightly startup to HR compliance hell. The founder returned to pulling Elon, firing a third of the company and replacing HR with a lean and mean people's ops limited to benefits and payroll. Managers were empowered to resolve issues without involving HR, and he jettisoned the now mandatory Fortune 500 ideological commissar that imposes cohesion-crushing diversity, manufactures grievances, and acts as a shadow management, undermining actual managers whose job is to get stuff done instead of diversity engineering and hall monitoring wrongthink. The CEO positively gushed, saying the culture instantly flipped to its mission-driven startup roots, with less bureaucracy and nimble decisions. Grievances out, performances in. So the background is corporate HR has metastasized into an $88 billion tapeworm, contributing to administrative bloat that costs up to $3 trillion in lost output. That's about $10,000 in lost wages per worker. Despite left-wing academics desperately trying to find DEI wins, research shows pretty much everything corporate HR does is catastrophic to performance and employee motivation.
And a lot of this was led by wanting to have women enter the workforce, because what are women good at, and what are one of the main things that they had? HR departments.
Yeah. Oh, you can leave it there.
Okay.
And we'll go into comments before we go over to RUMBLE. And I got a couple of lighthearted stories for RUMBLE today.
Cool. Todd says, true story, the mind of a criminal, about Carney. Todd also says, great show, guys. Thanks again. Thank you for being here. And Todd says, I would have married the first girl I was with. LOL. She didn't feel the same. Went through a couple more before I was finally left alone. Maybe a señorita one day, hopefully. I'm sure. And again, I think as men mature, they become more attractive to younger women. I mean, that's how the dynamics have always worked, except we try to pretend like they don't. Troglodyte says the movie Escape from New York was prescient. Definitely. And again, all the money already escaped or is in the process of escaping New York now.
Yeah.
Troglodyte says the sympdemic has ruined dating. Sympdemic, yep. William Robel says, Guy, just remember this. What's hers is hers and what's yours is hers. Technically, actually, yes, with us.
Everything's, we have one bank account, everything like that.
Hayden Camps, sorry, I couldn't read that name, says, we need a plan to deal with supply management. It's a larger voter bloc that will vote against independence if there isn't a clear plan for either keeping or getting rid of supply management.
Yeah, what's going to be supply management?
Well, I'm guessing partly HR, but also trade or anything that gets made.
So you're saying anybody that works in those industries will vote against independence?
Well, Hayden also says can't just get rid of it because it will destroy farms that have just paid millions for quota.
Yeah.
Okay. So like maybe supply management towards like food and that agriculture and
that. Yeah, I'm not sure of the clarification for the question there.
For what supply management?
Yeah.
What do you mean by supply management?
I know what supply management is. I just don't know why they would vote against Alberta independence.
Plan to deal with supply management because it's a larger voter bloc that will vote against independence if there isn't a clear plan for how to keep or get rid of.
Oh, yeah. If you're still here, just say why they would vote against Alberta independence, I guess.
Yes. Oh, okay. Troglodyte says dairy, etc.
Oh.
So like the industries like dairy. I'm guessing.
Yeah, but
food,
I think these industries
farming,
I think these industries. What we're talking. Okay,
Sorry,
let's go to.
It's because Hayden said for dairy and poultry. So now I was
we can
trying
go to
clarify.
RUMBLE if you want.
See, he gets upset when I interrupt him because his little plan doesn't go according to plan.
I don't have a plan. I was trying to answer a question.
Then answer it.
Well, you obviously have an answer.
Well, no, Hayden said for dairy and poultry.
Yeah, but you keep interrupting me, so why don't you answer it now?
Because I don't know what you were going to say.
You don't have to know what I'm going to say. You can give your own answer.
I was reading the comment that just came in.
So now you can answer it.
I don't have an answer. This is what it's like behind the scenes, by the way. This is what I deal with.
What I was going to say to that was a lot of the dairy and stuff like that is there's these monopolies and cartels that really benefit the eastern provinces. When it comes to supply management in Alberta, I think it would be a big net benefit for a lot of people for Alberta to get its independence, because I think you're going to see a lot of industries that are set up to succeed on the East Coast. We would make our own industries inside of Alberta, such as dairy and other things.
True. But now we're heading over to RUMBLE. Maybe we'll continue to bicker over there if you're interested in that. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. We'll come back at 5 p.m. for the evening show. And what else?
And thanks to the real Stephen Jensen for super chatting today.
Exactly.
Really appreciate it.
30-second Waitscreen, then we'll see you over at RUMBLE.
Let's get ready to